Дэвид Стерлинг, основатель, учредительный директор, генеральный директор Дотерра. Мудрый руководитель, объединивший всех вокруг компании. Он мотивирует каждого члена семьи Дотерра работать в команде, веря, что все мы связаны, несмотря на различия. Оставаясь добрыми и терпеливыми, мы помогаем друг другу развиваться, оставляя за каждым право прокладывать свой путь к успеху и счастью.
So Dave, it's great to be with you today. I know we're going to be on this virtual convention for Russia in 2021, and it's going to have thousands of people online watching this. So thank you so much to the audience, and thank you, Dave, for being here. Your willingness to always participate amazes me.
Well, I have to say, Murray, I'm so disappointed that we aren't able to have this in person. That was the intention, I know, and my intention was to be there as a part of that. But anyway, next best thing.
Yeah, circumstances are such, and we know we'll be there in the future, and things will open up. And so, again, this is the next best thing. I know you've had a passion for Russia and Eurasia for a long time, going back to your college days. If that's not correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it goes back. I hate to say this, but 30 years or more even. And when I at one point in my career, my plan was, this is just when Russia was opening up and many things were changing, and my plan was to go and get an international MBA, Columbia at that time, and to start out my postgraduate work over in Moscow, at Moscow Universitet there.
So your sights were on Russia the whole time.
They were, and that some things happened and changed where that's not the angle at which I was able to get to Russia, but I'm sure glad that we're getting there now. So,
well, many people don't know you actually studied the Russian language a little bit, and so it wasn't just this kind of let's see how this goes. It was you firmly believe.
Я говорю немного по-русски.
Thanks for sharing. That's like 10 words more than I know.
No, but I also love more than that. Even perhaps is just the Russian literature, the greats. Pushkin. Gogol, Dostoevsky, of course, Tolstoy.
Yeah.
I've read a number of those books over the years, and they've been fascinating to me, as well as just a lot of the history, and going back 1,000 years, or and just wanting to understand what is a fascinating country with a history and a culture that goes back and is so deep, so rich.
Yeah, it's amazing to look at the long history and all the different czars and leaders and the history of this great nation. So it's hard to believe that over 3.5 years ago, you and I were in Russia together, and if I believe correctly, May 2018 for the grand opening, and those are some very fond memories. But that was literally your first time in Russia. How did that feel?
Oh, it was a life-changing experience for me, and part of that was just because having never actually visited Russia, and we spent time in Moscow and went all around and saw a lot of things besides the beautiful cruise down the Moscow River there.
That cruise was awesome, yeah.
And then now visiting the Kremlin and a number of other places, and then on up to taking the train on up to St. Petersburg. And
I forgot about that. You went,
my view of Russia, I just never realized how beautiful it was, and how beautiful the city was, and the landscape, and so forth. My view, unfortunately, was probably what was fed to me by our media here most of the time.
Sure.
And it was quite an eye-opening experience for me, and just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, those are fond memories, and I think since then we've done very well in Russia thus far, and we've opened up shipping and enrollments, and also commission payments to Kazakhstan and Belarus, which probably everybody is starting to hear more. And the Ukraine will be open. It'll be open in first quarter. So lots of fond memories and lots of hard work by the teams, and we're grateful for customers and leaders that have helped us in this great area. So, if you were on stage today in front of a live audience, you would. I know you're great about getting to know the audience. The first thing you would probably ask is, how many first-time people to this? So what would you say to those that this is their first experience or touch point with doTERRA?
Well, thinking, and I do like to do that. I do like to look and see, what percentage of the group is new. And I know that with the speed at which things have grown in Russia in the last year or two, that would be significant. That number would be significant. In fact, many of the people that will be listening to this will be new. This will be their first actual exposure. Unfortunately, an online convention, but it'll be first major exposure to doTERRA. And some things that I would want to share with them. We probably don't have time because I could do all, take the next 15, 20 minutes, but some of those things would just be for wanting them to understand doTERRA's a little bit more about its beginnings, a little bit more about how it started. It's the grit that was involved in starting up the company, the personal sacrifice from many over the years, and our commitment to a particular culture and the way that we do things. That's really more important to us, perhaps, than even business growth or success.
Sure. And you touched on culture, which is a perfect segue. In the beginning, you had a vision of a type of culture that you wanted to create, even asking yourself questions: who's responsible for this culture? And more importantly, how do we sustain this wonderful culture of doTERRA that helps so many people? Well,
doTERRA is unique in some fascinating ways. I would say, first off, it's a culture that we want to actually be a real blessing in people's lives, not just personally and financially, or even with the healing that the essential oils can bring, but within teams, within groups. And we want to impact that for good. I was recently asked by a smaller group that I was spending a little bit of time with, some leaders, not high level, but middle level leaders, I would say. And what do you want us to do? They're saying, what do you want us to? What do you need? And my response was, I need you to become healers.
Yeah.
And the world is desperately in need of that. It seems like just so much is in commotion, and so many problems, and if they aren't really happening, they're happening in people's minds.
Sure. Yeah.
And people seem to have lost a lot of confidence, and they're a little shaken in some ways, because of what they've been through in the recent year and a half of this pandemic.
Yeah, for sure. And I think if I looked out to the audience and was talking about the culture, and again, Dave travels, you travel and have traveled so far around the world, and I think we've had this conversation before, the more you travel and meet people, the more similarities there are than there are differences. So how does the doTERRA culture emphasize those similarities that we find?
Well, you're exactly right. If I travel to Russia, I look at the history, and I know that's impacted their culture. I look at Japan, has a very unique type of culture, or it might be Australia or other parts of Europe or South America. What I've learned over the years is that people are a lot more similar than they are different. They all respond to the same things. They want a lot of the same things. And the kind of people that we tend to attract a lot in doTERRA are people who want their lives to be purposeful and meaningful.
Sure.
And, it isn't just about becoming financially successful.
They want to make a difference in the lives of people.
And it isn't just about finding, healing and use of the essential oils. They actually want to impact the world. They want to make a difference. And we provide really a fascinatingly powerful and in some ways unique platform for people to do that from. Yeah,
and it's amazing every time I think I understand the culture of doTERRA. It's it's like an onion, like layers of understanding. So to pivot a little bit, one thing that really drives culture for me is a program called Healing Hands. It's not really a program. It's more part of our DNA. We could talk for hours around Healing Hands, but I wanted you to comment because I know in the last several weeks you have traveled to Somaliland, and there is a hospital in Sanag that you and a team of people have been working on for a long time, and it's very close and dear to your heart. So give us an update and maybe give us a few specifics of where we are with that hospital in Sanag.
Well, first of all, I just have to start by saying that because of the nature of our products and being plant-based, we have so much need in terms of producing these essential oils, these plants around the world, that they draw us into many parts of the world, all over the world, in fact, in significant ways. In fact, the numbers of people that are employed that we employ and taking a lot better care of them than they were taken care of before in terms of the growing, harvesting, distilling these essential oils. It's now exceeding 400,000.
That's amazing how we get pulled. People ask us, what's your strategy to go outwards? And a lot of it's just this pull of many things.
And so it pulls us in there. And when we go into these countries, of course, we want to help out. We want to bring them what they need. Now, Somaliland, as you mentioned, it is where we get about probably 75% of our frankincense comes from Somaliland. And that pulled us out there, first time about 7 years ago, more than 7 years ago now. And that's when Emily Wright and I flew out to Bosaso, there in Puntland, in a little single propeller.
There's those pictures where Emily's sitting on.
She is. Yeah, she's looking a little forlorn, I guess, in one of those pictures because because we couldn't get out. These trips. It's a rougher part of the world, for sure. And this last trip, we've done things over there. We've built schools. We've even built, a significant health clinic in Timorish, outside of Bosaso. But what we took on about almost 4 years ago now, a really big project. And when you go to Somaliland, which is that whole upper part of by the Sea of Aden up there, that whole upper rim there, you have Hargeisa, which is the capital. You have a few other things in between, Barabara maybe here, but then you have Ergavo, which is way out on the east side. And that's where we decided to build our hospital. And they have nothing like it, and there are no services. And it provides services to close to 600,000 people, medical services that just simply don't have that today. So through a Herculean effort, on behalf of doTERRA, some of its employees, and others there, we were able to get this done. It's considered to be one of the greatest miracles. In fact, the World Health Organization, when they learned about it, their jaws dropped.
They're just amazed that an organization like doTERRA can do things that others couldn't.
Many had tried and failed over the last couple of decades, and it just didn't work. Whereas our hospital is alive and thriving. So I was out there. We flew in from Addis in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, and drove. We couldn't fly. Drove. It took 2 days over about and 2 days back from Ergavo. And it's it's a.
They're not nice, smooth paved roads.
Not always, no. And there's a level of security you have to have as well. It's a country still has some challenges. But when we went out there and we were there for the opening, the ribbon coming, just the celebration of this, it was unbelievable. I'll just maybe share a couple things. I mean, this is an honest-to-gosh hospital with 9 buildings. From operations centers to, birthing centers for the women to just all kinds of different focuses that they have. We had people lined up at 6 a.m. the first day waiting
for services.
Wow. And first day, we ran into a little boy who had, a little 5-year-old who had been kicked in the head by a camel, and it literally it had caved his skull in.
Yeah.
And then there was, you name it. DNCs that were needed, sometimes amputations in horrible situations that people are dealing with, sometimes cesarean sections. All of these things happened within the first week, and in the first month, that hospital saw more than 2,000 patients.
Wow.
And the surgeries, a little boy with the injury from the camel, incredible. They were taking a neurosurgeon of great skill. Well, we have surgeons with great skill, and they fixed it.
So you had the people there.
They fixed it, and they're doing well today. And we've delivered C-section babies. I think you kind of name it, you see it out in Africa. So we have wonderful doctors, skilled nurses, skilled administration, a very good lab for doing the work we need to be done there. And anyway, from there we reach out to the harvesting villages. It's amazing project.
Yeah, I'm constantly, amazed at the significant efforts that you personally go through. I know Dr. Osgathorpe, I believe, was with you, and I know this is a team effort, but I wish everybody in the audience could feel, what you experienced and see what you experienced, because it's part of our DNA. It's not just that we talk about it.
Well, we part of that experience out there is we did travel out to one of our outreach posts, a little harvesting village that looks much like it did 2,000 years ago, if not exactly.
Yeah.
And it's out where the frankincense trees are growing up in the mountains, and you go out there, and the mothers start bringing their little children in for help, and trying to do a lot of teaching and training. And anyway, that's just one example, though. The thing you have to remember, that hospital is certainly one of the most amazing projects that doTERRA's accomplished, but there's 20 others like that, and hundreds of others that are maybe a little smaller, but they're significant.
Yeah, and that's what I love, is that we work with trusted people on the ground, because it has to be sustainable. And as I look at Europe and Eurasia, I'm amazed at our leaders that are taking on these projects. So you're right, your story of Sanag and the hospital is one of hundreds of stories on different levels, and that's what's so fascinating. So a lot of people, when I travel, they ask me about the foundation of doTERRA, and they comment on the 7 owners and the culture and the healing hands and co-impact sourcing. And I tell them that this is a legacy company. I remember talking to Dr. Hill on our 10th anniversary, and really the success of doTERRA has to live beyond the people and what's been set up. So what makes doTERRA in your mind a legacy company?
It has to eventually drive down to its people, and I'm not talking about me or my team or anything like that. If it lives and dies with myself or the other founders, then we have a real problem there, and we recognize that. We've recognized that for actually a number of years.
Sure.
And so really we become very dependent on our leaders that we have that make up doTERRA out in the field. I was with a group of these leaders, a small group, just recently, and when I told them, you are our team, more than the team that I have back here at corporate headquarters. Sure. Half of them, got emotional, started crying, and I don't think they understood that we are so dependent on them. When I tell them I need you to become healers, I'm not just talking about the essential oils and the ability to heal a lot of different various maladies and issues that we have. I'm talking about healers of people and whatever is needed that are going to make a difference in their communities and their own families and their own teams, and are going to start to impact the world for a lot of good. That's what we're about. The essential oils are super powerful, but honestly, they're a vehicle for the other things we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think that leads into the next, this message of hope, and you touched on that because you've talked about this in the past, how both from an individual and relationships and families, you literally can change people's trajectory and their lives, and and you were the original people to do what these new groups of leaders are going to do in the future, and sometimes that's difficult to really show and explain and help them understand. But that's what is so fascinating. You've talked about this message of hope. What message of hope would you give the audience in these currently challenging times, whether it's distractions or pandemic? I mean, there's so many things, but what message of hope would you give to our people in Eurasia?
I think probably what I would say, maybe first and foremost, is we can't necessarily control what's happening around us all of the time, and and are we going to see more variants with the pandemic? Is global warming going to change our weather patterns so dramatically?
Many things out there.
There's so many things that you can worry about. And we know that just from the measurements with anxiety and mental health issues, that those have become the new pandemic, honestly.
It's almost a second pandemic.
It almost is bigger than the other, and that's more damaging in terms of loss of lives and so forth. And so I look at that and I think, all right, but what you can choose as an individual is how you're going to respond, how you're going to feel, how you're going to treat others. And we need more kindness in the world. We need more people that are not responding in a angry or hateful manner.
Sure.
You don't have to disagree or agree with everyone, rather, but you do need to treat them respectfully. And we talk about hope. People want to come and become a part of doTERRA and be associated with it because we bring hope, and we often bring a community, sort of a feeling or family that gives them a lot more meaning in their lives, helps them to remove themselves perhaps from cases of isolation and fear and depression and whatnot. And we come out and we give people a reason maybe to be happy again. And for me personally, I believe there's a lot of hope in the world. I'm not one of these that believe the world's just going to fall to pieces and go into chaos or end anytime soon. And so there's a lot of lives. What you have to realize is that, going back to that little 5-year-old that got kicked by the camel, what's he going to grow up and do? He wouldn't have lived had we not done the surgery.
Sure, you have. Yeah.
He wouldn't have lived. And but what is he going to grow up and do? Who knows? I've seen these little kids grow up and become something great. You don't know the impact that an individual is going to have on the world. And so we hope that people will look at other individuals and look at them for the incredible just ability that they have to become. Yeah. And that's what we try to do. Is we want to facilitate that. We want to provide an environment for that. And
I love how bringing that back to the young boy and the younger generation and that message of hope. And I know we could talk for a long time, and yet we need to see what the future brings. And so as we look to the future for Eurasia, for Russia and Kazakhstan and Belarus and Ukraine and other markets, we could show a lot of numbers, we could talk a lot about things, but what do you see when you look to the future of Russia and this area that's really embracing doTERRA? It's growing very fast.
I see a rising generation, and it's amazing and it's powerful to me as I see these younger people. They're younger to me anyway now, but I see these people coming up, and they aren't like their predecessors.
Sure.
Whatever you want to call them, Gen Zs, millennials, whatnot, but it's
certain things motivate them differently.
That's right. Yeah. They have a different, more of a global view. They have more of a view towards whatever they're doing in life has got to be meaningful and purposeful. And I see this rising generation coming up that's so powerful. And frankly, that gives me great hope. I look at the countries you just mentioned. Sure. To me, they're young countries.
Yeah, they are.
Old, obviously they go back in terms of history, but they're young in the sense of these this new generation that's coming up in them that is not like their parents.
Yeah.
And they've got incredible power. You know, what we hope to do in doTERRA is to go out and be a part of that and help to facilitate the power of that group and what they're going to come up and do in the world, and just impacting hundreds of thousands of lives.
Yeah, and we're seeing it before our eyes, and that's what gets me excited. It's really good to be with you here today, Dave, and feel of your energy. And every time I get the opportunity to be with you, it shows that we have a bright future ahead of us, and especially for our audience in Russia and Eurasia. Again, we all wish we could be with you in person. That time will come very soon.
Well, this pandemic is going to come to an end.
Correct. Yeah.
It is not in some people's minds. It's going to last forever. It's not.
Yeah.
It's going to come down. It's going to come to an end, and doTERRA has not been sitting on its heels during this time. We've been working very, very hard. In some ways, it's been a good thing because it's forced us to stop running around the world, so to speak, and to stop and really re-entrench and develop some really amazing things, products and things that are coming. And so we're ready. When the pandemic lifts and the travel restriction lift and we can gather in groups again, because you need to gather.
Yeah, it's an experiential brand. Like, we have to be with people.
You got to gather. You know, there's something that happens when people are together that it's really hard to duplicate online. And we will do that again. And we will. And I think my own feeling is that doTERRA is just kind of waiting in this eddy a little bit, and then it's just going to move, and it's going to become. You mentioned a legacy company. Its legacy and impact to the world because of countries over there in Eurasia and Russia and all these, and it's time for them to really come out and have this impact on their societies. I think that's fascinating me.
No, it couldn't be said better, and I think that's a real good wrap up to what our conversation is. doTERRA is very unique, and it impacts communities and families and societies in a very significant way, and it's just exciting to be part of that. So thank you for what you do, Dave, and I know all of us back here in Pleasant Grove, again, we wish we could be there, but this is going to be going out to thousands of people participating online, and I hope that they can see and hear and most importantly feel the passion that you have about doTERRA and what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you again, Dave.
You're very welcome. And I'll just maybe end by saying we've overcome a lot of challenges in this part of the world. And whether it's logistics or payments or different products, whatever it might be, but they're pretty much resolved now. We have a fantastic team. They're equipped and they're ready to go. We have some really wonderful leaders. It's very exciting to me. So thanks for letting me come.
Thank you.
Take a couple minutes, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody again here.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Hopefully soon.